Hello and welcome to the FATBOSS guide to the Conclave of the Chosen on Mythic. So this encounter is mechanically identical to Heroic, and as a result you need to play it out in a very similar way. The differences of course are the incoming damage, especially on the tanks, and more important to note is the bosses. They have way more health. And as the bosses dying at set times is such a key factor to defeat the encounter, due to their Wrath ability timers, that extra health can make this difficult for your guild to get right depending on your gear. But before we get into any of that, there is however one brand new mechanic for us to explain. Now gradually throughout the encounter, one member of your raid will be debuffed with Bonsamdi's Wrath. This curse debuff is permanent and does nothing to you aside from making you completely immune to healing. When you dispel the debuff it will disappear for a few seconds before reapplying to a new random player. With one debuff this is pretty much a non-issue, you can just dispel the player whenever they need to be healed. However, as the fight progresses you'll gain more and more Bonsamdi's Wraths. Towards the end of the encounter, you should expect to have 6 or even 7 of them on your raid. This makes healing super stressful towards the end of the encounter without well-timed dispels. Now as this debuff is a curse, ideally you would have enough mages, druids and shamans to make sure that all of the dispels can be covered at set points where raid damage is high. We typically have 7 cursed dispels available when killing the boss, and whilst you can do it with less, if you can still make the damage requirement to kill the bosses at set points, you should look to have as many dispellers as you can. Somewhere around the 8 to 9 mark will make it super clean. So how should the dispels be done? For the most part we dispel randomly throughout the fight, especially right at the end, to allow healers to continually heal the raid at most times. This however does need some decision making. If you dispel people at full health and they have no dot or no incoming raid damage on them, you're 1, wasting your dispel, and 2, potentially moving the debuff onto somebody who does need that healing. So you do need to make sure that you're smart with these dispels. The most important part to actually time your dispels however is during a Paku's Wrath. If a player enters the circle at full health but with a debuff and they are not dispelled during the Paku's Wrath duration, they will likely die without some form of personal cooldown. Therefore going into Paku's Wrath you want to make sure that all of your dispels are available and ready to be used somewhere roughly midway through the channel, so that every player with a curse can be quickly healed up. To make this even cleaner, you want to have all of your strongest healing cooldowns used on each Wrath throughout the fight. You can find a spreadsheet in the description of this video to see an example of our healing assignments throughout the fight. Now before we move on and talk about boss kill timing, we should also mention that Paku's Wrath circle is also a lot smaller than it was on Heroic. This is a problem for 2 things primarily. One is the Kragwa overlap. Ideally, healers don't really want to move during the Wrath as they want to be casting instead. We opt to have healers stand towards the middle of the circle and range players stack around the edges. This isn't always perfect and healers may need to move a little bit to dodge the frog, but it's better than having them move from every single leap. And number 2, the Thundering Stormcast from Akunda. If Akunda casts this whilst you're inside Paku's Wrath, you're left with very little room and might even be forced to stand out. So tanks need to keep an eye on timers and move out of the Wrath with Akunda so that the storm is never within it. Right, so let's move over to kill order and timings.
So you'll want to kill Conclave first as his hex on the raid is really annoying and it slows down your DPS. You'll want to have him dead just as the first Paku's Wrath starts the moment the bird appears in the middle of the room. Afterwards you want to kill off Kimball. You want to kill him as you're coming out of the second Paku's Wrath. Afterwards you'll want to have Paku dead, since she has a pretty large damage increase as she's been up since the start of the fight. She can pretty much die at any point that suits you, just try not to overlap her death with a Paku's Wrath at the exact same time, otherwise you're just going to freak your healers out with all the incoming damage. Which just leaves you with Akunda to finish off whenever you can. If you're struggling to kill those first 2 bosses at those exact times, then consider 4 healing instead of 5, or just have a few of your healers focus on dealing damage whilst the first 2 bosses are up. Ultimately you don't really have too many other options. As for Bloodlust, we use it roughly 3 minutes and 45 seconds into the fight where you'll be killing off Paku. Doing it around this time actually lines up perfectly with a third set of 2-minute cooldowns, and 3-minute cooldowns can just hold until this point. This part of the encounter is actually one of the more hectic parts as well, so using Lust here actually does help you that little bit more just to get through it. But that's it for the encounter. You need to make sure you get those dispels down correctly and at the right time during the Paku's Wrath, make the damage requirements so the bosses die at the right time, and the rest of the fight can be done the exact same way you did on Heroic. But the last thing to really mention, which you probably didn't see on Heroic, is that of course Paku's going to be up for a long time, and she will be casting Gift of the Wind. Mages can actually spell steal this, which gives them a nice damage increase, but this is also applied to all of the raptors. You're going to need to make sure that you're purging this effect, otherwise the raptors are going to catch people and going to kill them off very, very fast. But aside from that, mechanically, everything else can be dealt in the exact same way. But thanks for watching guys. If you'd like a recap of this video in text format or would like to see some more detailed information on the encounter, then do check out our guides over on Wowhead. A link for that can be found in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we will catch you all in the next one.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.